Spoilers start now. Hey folks, Arcaden here. Sleep Awake is a psychedelic narrative game, a little bit cosmic horror, a little sci-fi. If you're curious what it's about, or played it and are like, huh? This video is for you. In the first part, I walk through all the main story beats and point out things that you might have missed in your first playthrough that hint at the larger story. Then in the second part, I'll share my theories for what actually is going on. Timestamps are below. Let's begin. Sleep Awake takes place in the last known city on Earth, the Crush. Everyone living in this city suffers under an affliction where if they enter into deep sleep, they die, their body dematerializing. They call this the Hush. Over time, scientists and different factions have come up with ways to push off sleep, but as a result, the city is suffering from mass sleep psychosis and is on the verge of falling apart. There's no escape from this city. It's surrounded by a boundless wasteland called the Fringe. As a result, the Crush is more akin to a living tomb than an actual living city. The game begins with an audio recording made by Ian Andromeda Pierce, our main character's father. The recording is addressed to Ian's mother, Amma. Ian is a scientist, and he tells his mother that he has a theory about how to stop the Hush, but to explore it means that he needs to abandon his family, as it's too dangerous. The family being Amma and his two children, Bo and Katja. As the tape ends and the father goes to leave, we hear that rain has started to fall, the first drops of a catastrophic event called the Swell. Sometime after that recording was made, Katja, our main character, is the last surviving member of her family. Her father was killed in the Swell. This was a torrent of acid rain that flooded the city, drowned individuals, turned people to clay, and just destroyed major parts of the city. Katja and her brother Bo survived the Swell by taking refuge at the highest point they could find, the greenhouse on top of their flat. With her father gone, Katja was left to care for both her brother and her grandmother. She was able to stave off the Hush by growing plants and using them to create an infusion that would keep sleep away. Over time, though, her brother Bo weakened and got exhausted, and he fell asleep and was taken by the Hush. Katja's grandmother, Amma, is technically alive, but she's bound in a waking sleep state, and Katja keeps her from being taken by the Hush by continuing to feed her infusions. The infusions Katja creates keep her awake, but it has other effects. When she takes it, time slips away from her. She attempts to keep track of the days she's spent by marking the walls of her house. The infusion also gives Katja vivid psychedelic hallucinations. She falls into one of these while walking through her flat. These visions often have recurring images. In this case, we see Katja in a white space with a mask on her face, water flowing through the mask. Her eyes are clouded over. Red lights begin to blink in this scene, and then Katja comes aware in a place called the Fathom. This is a space that is somewhere between sleeping and death, and is a key part of the story. In the Fathom, she's greeted by a mysterious woman named Het. Het talks to Katja as if she's known her for a long time and beckons her to follow her. No matter what Katja does, whether she agrees and tries to follow or runs away, she never reaches Het. Instead, she comes upon a version of her greenhouse in the Fathom, and when she enters it, she sees that she has fallen asleep in her flat. More images. Katja in a desert. A man with a deformed face. Katja's alarm wakes her up. She's lucky she wasn't taken by the Hush. Katja gets to work making a new infusion for her grandmother, Amma. First, she purifies some water using a cymatic ritual, cymatic being the process of studying audio waves by making them visible in certain mediums, in this case, water. She completes the ritual by singing, and then the purified water moves into the pipes on her ceiling. She grinds plants from her house and distills them, creating the infusion. While she works, she remembers her brother.
Can I have a turn?
Last time you sneezed and the powder went everywhere.
Then she takes a drop of the infusion. She comes back to awareness in the Crush. She realizes she is on her way to Amma's flat. As she makes that journey, she's about to run into many of the different factions that have appeared in the city. First, she sees the shadows and hears the violence created by the soldiers of the Delta Transport Ministry. The DTM is a group led by Xavier Prin, a former scientist of the Somnological Institute. The DTM has developed a chemical solution to sleep death that they administer through their Delta theaters. The DTM has the most disciples of any of the factions in the city and therefore the most power. They are attempting to purge any individual that does not follow their methods from the city entirely. Their uniform is delivering them a dosage of drugs, a combination that was created at the Institute that can often cause hallucinations. They are focused on their goal to convert, expand, and enforce. While avoiding the DTM soldiers, Katja finds herself in the home of Dvorak. He is a pain eater. Now, pain eaters are another faction with their own method of avoiding falling asleep. They practice what they call excruciating devotion, living in a constant state of self-inflicted suffering as a method to avoid the sleep death. They watch Hellraiser a lot, I'm assuming. While their tactics are supremely distasteful, Katja remembers her father telling her at one point that their methods seem to work, at least in part. As she watches the pain eater do his ritual, the soldiers of the DTM come in and take him captive. At the end of the chapter, Katja sees them execute this pain eater. In a nearby apartment, she comes upon a void shadow. This is the remnant of someone who has been taken by the hush. Katja sings to the void shadow. There's something about her singing and her voice that helps her connect to some other plane. And it seems like maybe those taken by the hush are not fully gone, but still exist in some form. Next, she comes upon a refuge of the Machinists, another faction in the Crush. The Machinists say they are wired awake, and they say they worship Om Law, Om being both an electrical current and also a sound of worship. The Machinists attempt to block the Delta dreaming state by electrocuting themselves with the exact right amount of current. It doesn't always work. To power their methods, they have tapped into power lines across the city. This has pulled power away from the DTM's Delta theater facilities, where they administer their chemical treatment, and so the DTM is especially invested in removing this faction. While exploring their refuge, Katja comes upon the body of their leader, Simon. He is suspended in the air, stuck in a closed-state circuit for eternity. Leaving the refuge, the Crush experiences a tremor. These are common occurrences, but in this case it's so strong that it causes a building to collapse. Soon after, Katja sees a vision of Het, the woman from the Fathom, and worried that she's drifting to sleep, she takes another infusion. For the first time in these hallucinations, Katja sees an image of trees growing in two directions. She comes aware in a room where eel oil is being made. This is another supplement that people use to try to stay awake. She needs to sneak her way through a stronghold of the DTM, eventually finding safety in a Delta theater. There are multiple Delta theaters throughout the city, and they served as the main distribution system for the DTM's chemical treatment for sleep death. At one point, they were so popular that lines extended far out the door. They promised this was a safe treatment, called it a lighthouse in the dark storm that was the hush. Individuals would get into a metal drawer where they would then be administered a gas called Sentinel, a gas that was developed at the Somnological Institute under the view of DTM leader Xavier Prin. The gas worked for a bit, but eventually individuals would develop a resistance to it and it would cease to work. The DTM was aware of the failure of the gas. Katja's father told Xavier about it, but they continued to use it to, according to an intercepted rebel transmission, break people's minds. After experiencing another hallucination and meeting with Het in the theater, Katja finally reaches her Amma's apartment complex. She has protected her grandmother by setting up traps and leaving threatening warnings for anybody who comes by. Near the entrance of Amma's apartment, Katja sees white hoof prints, a reference to the Wild Boar faction. The Wild Boar was an insurgency group that resisted the oppressive tactics of the DTM. Katja is unsure whether they exist anymore. In her grandmother's apartment, there's another reference to pigs. There's a framed painting of Stories of a Learned Pig, a story from the 1800s about a pig who could accomplish all manner of things. Katja also finds a painted doll. There are a few of these in the game, all painted by Amma. This one has a drawing of Amma herself and has the words on it, "Trees may bend with the wind, but their strength lies underground," and a drawing of the boar. It seems that Amma is connected in some way to this faction. On the wall above the doll is a drawing that will reappear throughout the game, a tree sprung up from the body of a person underground. Katja finds Amma sitting in the dark in her permanent state of half-sleep, right on the edge of the hush's reach. Despite being in this state, Amma suddenly begins to speak. She says,
How did she put it? Resisting the inevitable comes at a cost.
She warns of individuals who carry chains. Hearing this, Katja falls into another hallucination and wakes up in the Fathom, in a pink orchard. Towering above the land is a gigantic tree, which Katja somehow feels is familiar. In the Fathom, a spirit-like image of her brother Bo plays hide-and-seek with her. The game leads her to the center of the massive tree, where Bo shows her that his singing can help a tree grow. Katja's singing does the same, but even more powerful. In this sequence, at one point, Katja is attacked by a harvester machine. As she runs away from it, she is surrounded by hundreds of the same specific machine. She encounters Het right after this, who tells her that Katja finally remembers, suggesting that maybe these are images from her past. Katja does not understand, but then Het says,
Resisting the inevitable comes at a cost. How did she put it? Resisting the inevitable comes at a cost.
Katja is not the only one who has seen Het. At the end of her visit in the Fathom, she watches as Het takes Bo into the hush. And she wakes up in a filled tub in her flat. The apartment is in bad shape. The irrigation system is malfunctioning, shaking the pipe so hard that the structure on the roof caves in. As Katja runs around to fix the problem, we see that the marks on the wall have grown significantly. Even though it feels like it has only been a few days, it looks like weeks upon weeks have passed. The plants are all dead. She has no way to create infusion and stave off the sleep death. In the greenhouse, in the spot where she and her brother hid from the swell, she finds a bottle of infusion from the Somnological Institute. This is where her father worked along with Xavier Prynne. She realizes that maybe she could find more infusion there, and so she takes a drop. In these hallucinations, she is suspended somewhere. There's some type of mask, geometric shapes begin to appear, and Katja comes to in a kid's playground. On the way to the Institute, Katja finds more boar prints and also sees the shadow of some kind of figure. The rattling of chains, another thing Amma warned her about. The Somnological Institute was where many of the Crush's smartest individuals worked to find solutions to the hush. People like Katja's father and Xavier Prynne, head of the DTM. When Katja finds her father's office, she discovers that he has been experimenting with runes and vibrations as a method to stop the hush. There's a letter from the leaders of the Institute warning him to stop this extracurricular research and stick with the goals and priorities of the Institute. Here is where she also learns that her father, Ian, and Xavier Prynne were once friends, often playing chess together. The letter warning off Ian from his extracurricular activities is representative of a schism that appeared in the Institute. There was a group called Project Sopor that was founded by Xavier and contained many scientists. Over time, differing opinions caused the group to fracture and individuals went in their own direction. Xavier became more radical in his approach to chemically treating the hush. He and Ian had a falling out. Making her way through the Institute, she hears a phone call where Xavier's voice has morphed and is changing.
Correction, I did work for you, Dr. Prynne.
Katja enters the Institute's pharmacy. There she finds a mask that has elements that bear a strong resemblance to the machines that appeared in her last visit to the Fathom. She also finds a bottle of infusion seemingly left for her. She takes it and reality blurs. The operating room is now filled with glowing seeds. She plants one in dirt and sings to it, creating a black tree. This allows her to access the control room, where inside she looks down into the light streaming from the floor and sees her father, still alive, in a cage. Tape recordings appear in the room. Collectively, they tell her the story of her father. He did not die in the swell as she assumed. He used that event as an opportunity to disappear from the family so he could dive deeper into his dangerous research to try to find a way to stop the hush. He came to believe that each of the factions in the city had something right about the hush. So he electrocuted himself with current like the machinists. He tortured his flesh like the pain eaters. Through all of this, he discovered a specific sound, what he called a chorus, During his research, he began to get visions of Het, who we now know is an envoy for the Hush, and he was able to keep her at bay by singing this chorus. Through his research, he had found a potential solution to keep the Hush at bay. Katja travels through a red ribbon that appears in the room, the same type of ribbon that appears in the sky above the crush, and searches for her father. She finds him in a room, trapped in a cage, being buffeted by sound waves. Katja works to free him, but she has led Het right to him. Het shorts out the sound waves, and creatures with chains appear. They are called the Soth. They plunge their chains into Ian's body, and Katja's father is taken to the Hush. After another psychedelic blackout, Katja flees through the crush, running away from the Soth. But one of them corners her and knocks her off a building, and she has more hallucinations. She sees more drowning images. A body is rising, as if waking up. She's suffocating in a plastic shell, and then she's back in the Fathom, this time in a red space. Voices speak to her. She hears her dad, her grandmother. As she approaches the white lights, she discovers them to be the essences of trapped individuals. She sings for each one, and this allows them to escape this red space. After freeing all of the trapped individuals, Katja is able to escape.
Will I ever see you again?
It's all in your hands now. I hope you find it in your heart to forgive me.
She comes to on the roof of her flat. In the book in front of her is another drawing of the tree and its negative image where the person serves as one of the tree's roots, the same from Alma's apartment. The walls of her flat are now covered with markings. So much time has passed since we began. In the flat, a ghostly figure leads her to her dad's quarters. There is a structure there spinning on the turntable. Again, this has a similar element to the machine in the Fathom and the mask at the Institute. In her father's study, she reads a report about a mysterious building that suddenly appeared in a square in the crush. Her father called this building Camera Obscura, a dark chamber or box. The report that she reads states that the building is bigger on the inside and hosts odd sensory distortions. As she uncovers secrets in her father's study, a ghostly figure appears, a being of pure energy. It leads her to a hidden room where she hears one more tape.
The city of Ash. A vision I'm not ready to explain, or even capable of explaining. I believe we face an unknown force of great power and intelligence.
Also on the wall of this secret room, she finds a picture of a building. A building that the creatures from the Hush are afraid of. After seeing this, another bottle of infusion appears. We see Katja running through the fringe, and then she comes to by the Camera Obscura. She enters it. In the center, there is a geometric crown that she slowly reconstitutes. She's then able to enter the crown, and through that she sees the city of Ash. This is a real place that her father saw. The city produces a sound, and it's the sound that her father has heard through his experiments and has been trying to replicate, what he calls the chorus, which the Hush is afraid of. Katja leaves the building and finds herself hunted by the soldiers of the DTM. They are out in force. Again, she takes refuge in a Delta theater. Here she comes face to face with Het, who offers Katja a way to find out the truth. To do so, however, she needs to get into a drawer. Katja does. She awakens in a space unlike anything else we've seen. Clean, modern, filled with lights and metal. She is choking on something in her throat. Het removes it. Katja follows Het through what's called the Keep. Katja enters a gigantic space where she sees the same structures that were in her vision in the Fathom. There are hundreds of these. They're called cyboriums, and above them, trees seem to grow. Katja enters one and learns the truth. The machines that she has been seeing are used to harvest energy from the hearts of individuals who have fallen to the Hush. These individuals are packed into these structures, but there isn't just a few of them, but hundreds of thousands of them. In some way, the entity, the Hush, uses these individuals to keep something alive. Their bodies serve as the strength for the needs of this entity. But despite the awfulness of what she sees, Katja also feels something new.
My father found a way to ward off the Hush, and now I know the way too.
She feels hope. She descends into the depths, a place that seems to contain the byproducts of the process the Hush is using to steal people's hearts. Maybe. To be honest, a lot of the ending of this game feels padded. A creature rises from this milky substance in the depths. It has no eyes, but it moves to attack her. She flees from them, but eventually finds herself surrounded. A ghostly figure that seems similar to this figure in the visions gives one of the entities a heart that's protected with crystals. The entity then gives this to Katja. Katja uses it to destroy them. They now simply look like wax figures. More visions come, and Katja is now aware they are not hallucinations. They are memories, real experiences from her and from others in the Hush. She comes to outside the Cyborium. Around her she sees the many humans who are being held captive. As she explores this space, Kat realizes she is not powerful enough to save everyone. First, she must save herself. She enters a sacred room where an entity called Hypnos, after the Greek god of sleep, tells her things are inevitable.
The cycle will not be broken.
But led by the essence of her father, Katja performs the water purification ritual one more time on a grander scale. Hypnos morphs into a heart surrounded by crystal. She goes to sing, but he interrupts her and asks what her heart desires.
Home.
Katja then absorbs the crystal heart. The water in the room disappears to reveal a door. Walking through it, she emerges in Amma's apartment, but it's a different version of it. The symbol of the resistance movement, the boar, is lit up on the wall. By the staircase is a box filled of DTM patches. She finds that Amma has been taken by the Hush, and she knows what to do next.
I'll find all of you. I'll bring you all to the city of Ash. We'll be safe there.
She goes to sleep, and then travels across the fringe, eventually arriving at the city of Ash. And that's the story of Sleep Awake. So what's actually going on? Well, here's my theory. The entire human race has been taken by the entity that's the force behind the Hush. The Crush, the city, is a symbolic space, a shared hallucination where those who have been taken but are still resisting and preventing the entity from stealing their heart energy. It's where they hide out. When they die or are killed here, the entity then can harvest their energy, eventually depleting the person and burning them out. There are a bunch of references throughout the game to a cycle that is happening. I believe what we are actually witnessing is many different cycles of Katja trying to escape. Most of the times when she doses, we see her rising up in that bag, moments of her becoming aware while in captivity, or she's running in the fringe, dying in the fringe, failed attempts for freedom. When Het tells Katja that she finally remembers, she's referring to other cycles where Katja has learned about the machines or other things that are appearing in her visions or in the Fathom. Though it seems like one continuous story to us, Katja is actually failing and being pulled back to her flat multiple times, while time passes in the Crush. As she's going through this cycle, her father and Amma continue to resist the Hush, him doing his research and her in her kind of fugue state, but eventually they fall. The Delta Transport Ministry is controlled by the Hush. It's their arm into the Crush. And they use it to push past people's resistance and ready them for their harvesting, whether that's through killing them in the symbolic world, or through the chemical treatment that they know doesn't actually work. Xavier is either working with the entity or, I think more likely, has been corrupted by it in some form, which could explain his weird morphed voice on the phone. Potentially, there's also a part of the entity that's helping Katja. Maybe this cloaked person, related maybe to this individual and the being of pure energy. By confronting the entity at the end and embodying the crystal heart, Katja is finally able to fully protect herself from the Hush and can leave the Crush. She is still in captivity, but she exists in a safe space, which is symbolized by the city of Ash. She is free, and now she's able to start freeing others. And if you're thinking this sounds a lot like The Matrix, yeah, I know. I've seen fields where hearts are harvested. But that's just what I think. I'd love to hear your thoughts and theories, and let me know if any of the things I left out you think were particularly important. I tried, with varying success, to keep my opinions on the game out of this and just focus on the story. That said, I'm happy to hear your thoughts or even share some of mine in the comments below. Why is this $30? And if you liked this video, please consider dropping a like or subscribing. The channel is still in its early stages of growing, and that type of support is incredibly helpful. In the meantime, thanks for watching.